Let's talk about some of the other concerns that you raise about American Tower. And again, they sort of run the gamut here. We're talking about incentives around executive compensation and how, in your view, it misincentivizes or disincentivizes management to run the company in a conservative fashion. Talk about that in more detail.
Sure. I mean, management is in part compensated based on tower growth. And so, not surprisingly, management...
Not just earnings growth, tower accumulation.
Correct. And so what this company has done the past 4 years is it's added tens of thousands of towers simultaneously in 9 different emerging and frontier markets. And, you know, before the company began this binge, it was doing $1.5 billion a year in revenue. It's not tiny, but it's not big. It does not have that capability.
We actually pulled out some of the countries here of where the acquisitions came from since 2000. I know you cite Brazil a lot in your report, but some of these other countries come up as well: South Africa, India, Colombia, Mexico, and I know you mentioned Ghana as well. You have questions with a lot of them.
Sure. Well, look, in many of these cases, so we've built our own models, again, going into the field, understanding what the market rents are, getting some color for the contracts that AMT has, and then we've run IRR models on 4 of these markets, including Germany. And so what we've found in 3 of these markets, AMT is not even outperforming the government long bonds. Right, so these IRRs may seem high, but then you look at the government bond in India is an 11% yield. Ghana, it's 20% yield. It's the only country in which AMT, out of the 4 that we ran these IRRs on, is outperforming the government bonds, is actually Germany. And they're getting a whopping 4% IRR.
And this is part of your thesis as it relates back to emerging markets and some of the risks around there. You also take pains to point out that this company is not hedged in the international currency exposure, the revenue exposure. How do you know that?
Well, the company readily admits that. I mean, the company says it's too expensive to hedge. Yes, I mean, these currencies are extremely volatile, which is why you need to hedge, but that's the same reason it costs a lot of money to hedge. But the one thing that is, I think, important for investors to understand is that the company, and therefore the shareholders, are not hedged, but management is. So management's comp targets are adjusted to X out any effects of currency fluctuations on their EBITDA hurdles.
So in other words, management gets a break that shareholders aren't getting.
Correct.
What about the problems that you raise with the structure, or American Tower's structure as a REIT? Because 2 of its principal competitors, Crown Castle, which, if I'm not mistaken, you praised to a certain degree in your report, and SBA Communications and other, aren't structured as REITs.
Right. Although they are, they have said that they are looking to convert to REITs. I mean, I think these cell phone towers, these companies, I mean, this American Tower is like a reasonable doubt REIT. And to be honest, I think it got in maybe just under the wire. I mean, this is before you had, Tim Cook in front of Congress explaining why Apple was using tax minimization strategies. So if American Tower were to apply to become a REIT today, would the IRS agree that these are real estate assets? I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical. But aside from that issue, I mean, what the incompatibility with the REIT structure and its business, these far-flung international operations. I mean, the idea with the REIT is that it's supposed to cause the company to dividend out the cash flow.
Basically a pass-through vehicle, right?
Correct. But with this international business, I mean, it's very expensive in many cases to bring the cash home. Now, American Tower puts a positive spin on that.
As Apple's Tim Cook would explain.
Exactly. And, American Tower tries to put a positive spin on that and say, well, we're reinvesting this overseas in these high-growth markets. Well, investors would be better served if they brought cash home at some point, but they don't want to do that.
Carson, before your report came out today, I know you announced it on Twitter, we had seen some action in the options market, especially the daily put volume. It had spiked leading up to this report, and we've seen the stock loss in the last few days as well. Did you leak any of this? Did people find out about this before you tweeted it?
I can't speculate as to what people knew, but I will tell you this. We did not own a single July put as of the moment this report was published.
So you were not positioned before, or you were positioned,
no, I mean,
with a short position on the stock?
We were positioned, but you're referring to especially the July put volume.
Yeah.
Well, what we're wondering...
That was not
you.
That was not
That was not you.
Correct.
So I guess that raises a question then. How is it, and people were, as you may know, people were speculating on Twitter hours before we heard from you, and hours before you sat down and joined us here, that Muddy Waters Research would be issuing some kind of a sell report and perhaps taking a short position on American Tower. People want to know how that could have happened.
I want to know how that happened. You're right. There was that speculation. I don't know. I have theories as to what happened, but we're in somewhat of a, stepping back, we are in somewhat of a unique situation where, the market really looks to us for these impactful calls. And we have had problems. I mean, my phone has been hacked. I know, Gmail sent me one of those notices saying that state-sponsored hackers, this was a couple of years ago, were trying to get into my Gmail account. We know that there have
from China?
Well, I think
maybe the Chinese are getting some of their money back.
That was the inference. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have theories, but I assure you that it was not in our interest.